Game one from last week was the Thursday night game, Jaguars and Titans. It was our Who Gives a Shit game of the week. Um, while they have two of the worst records in the NFL, they are not the worst teams in the NFL. According to the rankings here, they are 28th and 29th, which really isn't great. But Tampa Bay, the Jets, and the Raiders are still worse than these two teams. Jacksonville came out ahead, 21-13. Charlie Whitehurst came in, had a pretty good game. Went 24-35, 287 yards and a touchdown, no picks. He also ran for 12 yards, old man. Blake Bortles had a pretty terrible game, 13-26 for 115 and a touchdown, but he ran 5 times for 50 yards, which helped his team. And then Jordan Todman came in and busted off a 62-yard run, which is pretty much the deciding factor in this game. Defensively, there was really no standouts. Derek Morgan for Tennessee had a couple of sacks. But yeah, I guess the player of the game here would probably be Jordan Todman, even though he touched the ball 7 times with the big carry. Bortles threw a touchdown pass, did not give the ball away, and did have 50 yards rushing on 5 carries. So after this game, believe it or not, even though Jacksonville won, according to the metrics, Tennessee is the 28th best team in the league, and Jacksonville jumped up to the 29th best team in the league. Game 2 was the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Washington Redskins. The Eagles are in a free fall. They have just lost 3 games in a row. Mark Sanchez is... You know what? He played a good game. He did kind of throw it away at the end there, but he had a pretty good game. I saw at one point he had something like, once he had 9 or 10 completions in a row towards the end. It was driving him down the field. They stalled towards the end after the big play to Macklin. But the question I have for this game, the big question I had was at the end of the game, the final drive for the Eagles. They drove down the field. They crossed the 50-yard line. They had all 3 timeouts. I think they were at the 40-yard line. They were moving the ball well. And I would put the ball in the hands of the guy I trusted most. And the guy I trust most for the Eagles is LaShawn McCoy. At this point, you're across midfield. There's a ton of time left. Even if you score right now, you would be giving Washington so much. I want to say there was over 3 minutes to go in the game at this point when he throws this pick. And I understand your field goal kicker missed a couple field goals, but give McCoy a chance to get you closer. You can still run the ball. It doesn't have to be pass. Sanchez threw 50 passes. 50 passes. I'm pretty sure I saw that he set the record for most completions in a game for the Eagles, 37. McNabb threw the ball a ton of times. Foles has thrown the ball a ton. But Sanchez is the guy with the record for most completions in a game for the Eagles. And that should never happen. I don't care what the score is. Mark Sanchez should never throw the ball 50 times in a game, especially when you have LaShawn McCoy and Darren Sproles in the backfield. That's completely unnecessary. Zach Ertz was a monster. 15 catches, 115 yards. But the reason Mark Sanchez had such a good game was that he just kept going after him over and over and over and over again. Macklin had 4 catches, 62 yards, including an unbelievable catch on the sideline. But, the Eagles gave it away. Robert Griffin wasn't spectacular, 16-23 for 220, no touchdowns and a pick. He didn't run 5 times for 11 yards. Alfred Morris gashed the Eagles a few times. He had 21 carries for 83. McCoy had 22 for 88. They both had a touchdown. Who really killed the Eagles was Darrell Young here. He had 2 carries, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a pretty efficient day right there. And of course, Deshaun Jackson came in and went 4 catches for 126 yards. Man averaged over 30 yards a catch. Unbelievable. Defensive standouts, not really anybody to talk about here. Fletcher Cox had another sack. Michael Kendricks had a sack for the Eagles. And then for the Redskins, Jackson Jeffcoat, Ryan Kerrigan, and Trevardo Williams each had a sack. The Philadelphia Eagles are now 9-6. They're going to miss the playoffs. Washington Redskins were out of the playoffs a long time ago. They're 4-11. This week's the rankings, according to the metrics, the Eagles had fallen to 13th place, and they were top 5 earlier this year. Now 13th. Washington Redskins are moved up to 27th after this game. Saturday night game was one of the most fun games to watch. San Francisco 49ers came out to, they were on fire, on fire. Rivers looked terrible, throwing a couple picks, and the Niners got out to a 21-0 lead. At one point, it looked like they were going to go up 28-0. The score was 28-7 at halftime. 28-7 Niners. And this is before Kaepernick busted off his big run. Niners came out to that big lead. Chargers stormed back in the second half with 3 Phillip Rivers touchdowns, and Colin Kaepernick busted off a 90-yard run in the third quarter. While the Niners still had a lead, he finished with 151 yards rushing. Frank Gore finished with 158. The Niners altogether ran for 355 yards on the ground, which is unbelievable. With the defense that they have, the lead that they had, and with them running, I don't know how the San Francisco 49ers lose so many games. How they are 7-8 is beyond me. I mean, I understand Colin Kaepernick is not a good quarterback. He's not. I mean, everybody loves him, but he's not a good quarterback. He's a big guy, he is fast, and he has a great arm, but he's not a good quarterback. He was 15 of 24, which is a great completion percentage, for 114 yards. He had 15 completions for 114 yards. It's well under 10 a completion. And that includes a completion of 20 to Anquan Boldin. So the other 14 went for 94 yards. 14 completions for 94 yards. Antonio Gates, he's not getting old. This man, he's old as can be. 7 for 92, 2 more touchdowns. Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates continue to extend their lead for most touchdowns from a quarterback to their tight end. Anquan Boldin had 7 catches, 61 yards, and after this game here, defensively, we had a couple sacks. Antoine Bethea, Parrish Cox, and Chris Culliver each had an interception, and Bethea took his back for a touchdown, 49 yards. After this game here, the San Francisco 49ers are 19th in the power rankings with a 50.6 rating, and the San Diego Chargers are 18th with a 51.2 rating. The next game we're going to go to is the Baltimore Ravens at the Houston Texans. Baltimore Ravens at the Houston Texans. Texans pulled this one out 25-13. Joe Flacco. I had this written down somewhere. I was actually following this during the game. At the beginning of the game, he started off with quite possibly the worst stat line that I have ever seen. He was 4 for 22 for 35 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. He had 4 completions to his team and 3 completions to the other team. 4 out of 22. Flacco finished really strong. He finished 21 out of 50, which means he went 17 for his last 28, which isn't great, but it was a good close. He 195 yards, so 17 for 160 for the rest of the game and a touchdown. Forsett did nothing on the ground, 10 for 19. He was one of the leading rushers in the NFL coming in. Foster had a great game, 25 for 96. Keenum, under 50%, 42 attempts, only 185 yards. This was, I don't know if I've ever seen this before, but combined, Keenum and Flacco threw 92 passes. 92 passes for 380 yards. 92 passes for 380 yards. This was defense first, run the ball, and unfortunately the Ravens were not able to run the ball very well this game. Couple sacks, Crick and J.J. Watt. There were 2 picks by Kareem Jackson, one by Bouye for Houston. I hope I said that right. Sorry if I didn't. Darian Stewart for Baltimore came out with a pick. Jacoby Jones, if it wasn't for his kick returns and punt returns, he had 4 for 122 yards, 30 yards a return on kicks. And he had 1 punt return for 45 yards. So, I mean, he accounted for 167 yards of offense, while the rest of Baltimore accounted for 211. Final score is 25-13. And in the power rankings, Baltimore Ravens are 6th. 6th in the NFL with an 89.7 rating. The Houston Texans are 10th with an 81.2 rating. Next game will surprise everyone. What I don't understand so far this season, It's the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. The Jets held the Pittsburgh Steelers, who had, coming into this week, I don't know if they still do, but coming into this week, they had the number one offense in the NFL. They held them to 13 points, and they won that game. Against the New England Patriots, they had the highest scoring offense in the NFL. They held them to 17 points, and by a missed field goal at the end, almost won that game. Brady had one of his worst games of the season. He hadn't had a bad game like this since the beginning of the year when he started off a little rough. He was 23 of 35, 182 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Nothing really going for New England offensively this game. Geno Smith, honestly, his game was better than Tom Brady's. He went 17 of 27 for 210, a touchdown and a pick. Overall, Smith had a better game than Brady. The Jets defense came to play, and they played well, but they just weren't able to close it out. Danny Amendola had a good game. It's probably the first good game we've seen him have with New England. If Brady can get on the same page with Danny Amendola when Julian Edelman comes back and the way Gronkowski's playing here, watch out. This offense for New England is unbelievable, and if they start getting more receivers on the same page with Brady, they're going to be tough to stop. I'd like to see them in Seattle in the Super Bowl. That'd be a fun game. It was just great all-around defense by the Jets there. You give up 231 yards and 17 points to the highest scoring offense in the NFL. That's a heck of a job. It's a heck of a job. Jets played one of the best games this year by any defense, and definitely give them props for that. According to the metrics after this game, the Jets are 31st in the league. The New England Patriots are number 1, and this was a 1-point game. From the number 1 team to the next to last team was a 1-point game. Next game we have on the list was a very important game between these two teams here. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. Steelers pulled this one out 20-12. The Chiefs are always within 2 quick scores. They actually outgained the Steelers 327 to 282. Alex Smith, very workmanlike, 31 of 45, 311 yards. Another guy you want to talk about that shouldn't be throwing the ball 45 times is Alex Smith, but he completes those high percentage passes, and he rarely makes mistakes, and he's a good running quarterback. Jamal Charles was held in check, 9 carries, 29 yards, but he had 5 catches for 48. And the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers still do not have a touchdown reception this year. So they've gone almost an entire season, 16 games without, almost, I don't know if it's 16 games yet, but they've gone almost 16 games without a touchdown reception for their wide receivers. Roethlisberger had a decent game, was 18 of 25 for 220, a touchdown, no picks. Very efficient. Le'Veon Bell had 20 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown. And Antonio Brown again. Another game with 5+ catches. 7 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. He's now leading the league in receptions, yards, and he's over 10 touchdowns this season. Pittsburgh had one of their best games of the season defensively. They finished with 6 sacks. But the Steelers, again this year, they don't get turnovers. For the last few years, they've taken the ball 18 times. The Chiefs have only taken the ball away 11 times. They are actually dead last in the NFL, right in front of the Jets and the Oakland Raiders with 11 takeaways. Good thing for both of these teams, though. Kansas City's only given the ball away 17. The Steelers have only given it away 18 times. After this game, with the power rankings, the Steelers clinched a playoff spot with this game. Kansas City Chiefs are fighting for their lives. They have a small chance of getting in still. They need the Chargers to lose. They need to win. And power rankings, of course, this is the way it is. The metrics, it's all about the metrics. It's not about the record. Kansas City Chiefs are 12th. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 15th in the power rankings. The Chiefs had a 68.8, and the Steelers had a 67.7. Detroit Lions versus the Chicago Bears. The Lions were in Chicago. They won it 20-14. They clinched a playoff spot, and they have a chance here of still clinching home field advantage. They got to finish up against Green Bay, I believe, this week. Stafford, if it wasn't for this defense, Matthew Stafford would probably be out of a job. He's having another rough season. again, with the weapons that he has all around him, he has Reggie Bush, who's always hurt. I'll give you that. Joik Bell, who's a good running back. He's got Calvin Johnson, who was hurt earlier this year, but he's still got Calvin Johnson. He's got Reggie Bush that can catch balls out of the backfield. Golden Tate, who's having an unbelievable season. I believe it's probably his best season this year. But he drove down the field and 2 times threw interceptions in the end zone against Chicago. This game was, the final score was 20-14, but it could have been, I mean, say they scored a touchdown and a field goal or 2 field goals. I mean, could have been further out of reach there. One of the biggest issues I had here was watching Jimmy Clausen. He threw great. He threw great. He was 23 of 39, which doesn't look that impressive, but he had 7 dropped passes. 7. You catch those 7, he's 30 of 39. That's a great game. Some of those were pretty big plays. He would have been close to 300 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. And that 1 pick was a throwaway end of the game thing there. Forte had another 19 for 55, 6 for 40, receiving and a touchdown. Alshon Jeffrey went 6 for 72 and 1, but he one of the many guys that dropped passes there for Jimmy Clausen. But this Detroit defense, they are sick. They are, according to the metrics again, they're the number 2 defense in the NFL. Not behind Seattle, which I'm sure that's what you thought, but behind Buffalo. Buffalo is still the number 1 defense in the NFL metrically, with a 46.07. Remember, defense is backwards, so the lower the number, the better. It's like golf. So Buffalo Bills are at a 46.07, and then Detroit Lions are number 2 with a 48.78. They're going to be tested this weekend against an Aaron Rodgers and a healthy Green Bay team. We'll see where they end up. The Seahawks are 3rd at 57.96. Well, I'm sorry, they're 4th. The Texans are actually 3rd with a 52.46. So, funny thing, we'll get to Seattle later, but there was some comments this week about Seattle Seahawks being the best defense of all time. They are a good defense, don't get me wrong. I love Seattle's defense. I love their tenacity against the pass, against the run. They get turnovers. They are a good defense. They are all over the place. They're fast. They're strong. But they're not even the best defense this year. It's no slight to them, but it happens. Sometimes it happens. You're not always the best. Detroit's better. Buffalo's better. Houston's better. Houston gets a lot of turnovers. That's their big thing. They got 34 so far this year. Buffalo's got 30. Against the pass, they are an unbelievable defense, but they are not the best of all time. And if you want to talk about the best defense of all time and some good runs, because Seattle here is on a pretty good run for the last few games, you want to talk about teams that have been on fire, look up the 1976 Steelers. Look how they finished that season. You tell me who the best defense of all time is. Last 9 games, they gave up 28 points. And in one of those games, they gave up 16. So the other 8 games, they gave up 12 points. And they gave up 28 points in 9 games. They had 28 takeaways. As many points as takeaways in a 9-game span. They were 9-0 in that span as well. So, anyways, Detroit looked really good last week. Sue had a couple of sacks. So Detroit wins this one. They're 11-4. They're in the playoffs, and they have a really good chance of home field throughout. The next game was Green Bay at Tampa Bay. Green Bay wins 20-3 and clinches a playoff spot as well. With the Eagles losing, that kind of helped them out. They another 11-win season. Their offense was not as impressive again as it has been most of this year. Aaron Rodgers looked pretty good, 31 of 40. Great completion percentage, so it's over 75%. 318 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, but they stalled a lot. Lacey had a big-time run towards the end of the game, 44-yard touchdown, 17 for 99 and 1 for him. Randall Cobb had 11 for 131, and Jordy Nelson had 9 for 113 and a touchdown. I was expecting this game to be completely out of hand. 20-3 was a lot closer than we expected, and without that Eddie Lacy run at the end, it would have been even closer. Josh McCown, Tampa Bay, it's a mess. It's a mess. They have Vincent Jackson. They have Mike Evans, 2 monstrous wide receivers on the outside, 2 of the best in the game. Even though Mike Evans is a rookie, he is a monster. You just throw it up, he's got it. Vincent Jackson's another huge guy, speed. But, I mean, it doesn't matter who you put back there, quarterback, that they're having trouble. Green Bay sacked Tampa Bay. What is this? That's 2, 4, 5, 6, it's 7 sacks. They had 7 sacks and interception. So Green Bay moves on. They're 11-4. They are the number 2 team in the NFL according to the metrics, and Tampa Bay is 30th. So the big difference. It's funny, the two of the biggest differences in the league: number 1 versus number 31, and number 2 versus number 30. At one point, it was 10-3. It was 10-3 going into the fourth quarter. 10-3, and New England won 17-16. So I mean, a couple plays here or there, and we got some huge upsets. That would have been some money in Vegas. Atlanta Falcons at New Orleans. Atlanta wins this one 30-14. What is going on with the Saints? This is at home again. At home. They lose another game at home, only scoring 14 points. Drew Brees throws 2 more picks. 30-47 for 313, a touchdown and 2 picks, but I don't know. Matt Ryan looked pretty good. 30-40, 322, 75% again. Julio Jones is... Watch out, he might end up leading the league in receiving yards by the time the season's over. He had 7 for 107. But yeah, this was unexpected. I saw the Saints coming in. I saw Breeze. I figured he'd have a good game trying to get into the playoffs. The Atlanta Falcons are 17th in the metrics. The New Orleans Saints are 25th. And they have a barely above average offense. Believe that. New Orleans Saints. Miami Dolphins and the Minnesota Vikings. One of the best games I saw all week. And a fun ending, too. How crazy was that? A blocked punt for a safety. Just it's over. It's done. You won. That was fun. That was very interesting. Kind of came out of nowhere. But it was back and forth at the end there. Bridgewater had himself a pretty nice game. 19-26, 259, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Ryan Tannehill was sick. 35 of 47. 396 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. Lamar Miller went for 92. This was just offense. This was offense. Miami had 493 yards of total offense. 36 first downs. So even with the win, they're 8-7. They're going to miss the playoffs, unfortunately. Miami is 14th in the league, rated. And the Minnesota Vikings are 22nd. Next game is Cleveland Browns and Carolina Panthers. Carolina is in the lead for a playoff spot at 6-8-1, and they have a chance to clinch the division. It's a winner-go-home game for them and Atlanta. Last game of the season here. The Panthers ran the ball well. Jonathan Stewart went 24 for 122, and Cam Newton went 12 for 63. Passing the ball, nobody really had an advantage there. Johnny Manziel got hurt early in the game, running to the sideline. I don't know exactly what happened. I think they said it was a hamstring and he's done for the season. He looked slightly ineffective at the beginning of 3 for 8 for 32, but I mean, it's only his second start. Nobody should be jumping the bandwagon yet. A lot of quarterbacks have had rough starts to their careers. And I mean, the Carolina Panthers are not a cream puff defense, so. Anyways, yeah, 200 yards rushing for the Panthers. They finished with over 400 yards. After this game, the Carolina Panthers are 24th in the league. And the Cleveland Browns, believe it or not, are 16th. 16th. The New York Giants at St. Louis. Odell Beckham Jr. had himself another great game. It was 37-27 was the final score. It was a pretty good game for most of it. Rams got to within 27-20 in the third quarter. Giants finished with over 500 yards of total offense. Manning went for 391 and 3 touchdowns, no picks. 25 out of 32, only 7 incompletions. Andre Williams went 26 for 110, and Odell Beckham went 8 for 148 and 2. The last few games here, he's been on fire. Of course, Reuben Randall also went for 132. Sean Hill for St. Louis, 24 out of 32 for 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Trey Mason had 76 yards and a touchdown, and Kenny Britt had 103 yards on 9 catches. Neither one of these teams is going anywhere, but as far as their rankings go, the New York Giants are 23rd in the league, and the St. Louis Rams are 21st in the league. Buffalo Bills, if you can believe this, I was talking about them earlier, they're still the number 1 defense in the NFL even after this game. They were well ahead of it before, but somehow lost to the 2-12 Oakland Raiders, giving up 26 points. 26 points. How is it that Derek Carr could throw 2 touchdowns and no picks, while Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers both ended up with goose eggs in the touchdown pass department? Kyle Orton went for 329 yards and 3 touchdowns for Buffalo, but they could not run the ball to save their lives. They had 13 carries for 13 yards for Buffalo there. So Oakland was the one playing a little better defense there in the run game. Although Fred Jackson only had 6 carries for 10 yards on offense, he had 9 catches for 93. Sammy Watkins had 3 for 75 and another touchdown. He looks like a good rookie there. Latavius Murray for Oakland went 23 for 86 yards. Derek Carr was 50%, 17 out of 34 for 214 and 2. Buffalo had a really good shot at making the playoffs. Now they're almost completely out of it. They had that great defense. And the Raiders, I mean, what? I don't understand. They lost to the Raiders. 26-24. So after this game, the Oakland Raiders are still dead last. They just beat Buffalo. And the Oakland Raiders are still dead last with a negative 51 rating. And the Buffalo Bills, after this, fall to 9th with an 84.6. NFL. Any given Sunday, right? We got the Dallas Cowboys stomping on the Indianapolis Colts here. The final score was 42-7, and believe it or not, the game was not that close. Tony Romo, everybody for Dallas, everybody that played for Dallas had an unbelievable game. Everybody. Even Brandon Whedon came in, threw one pass for 43 yards and a touchdown. And I mean, it doesn't even make sense. Combined, the Dallas Cowboys quarterbacks, Romo and Whedon, were 19 out of 21. They threw 5 touchdown passes. Murray ran for 58. Romo had 28. Joseph Randle had 37. I mean, how many yards did the Cowboys put up? 377 yards, but all of them were extremely efficient. They ran the ball. Indianapolis had 1 yard rushing. 10 carries for 1 yard rushing. Andrew Luck was 15 to 22 for 109, which is a good completion percentage, but again, when you have 15 completions for 109 yards, his long was 22. He had a 22-yard long. So you take that out, he had 14 completions for 87 yards. 14 for 87. That's worse than Flacco's there. No touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He had one of his worst games as a professional there. Hasselbeck came in, went 15 to 21 for 126 and a touchdown, but most of that was garbage time. So both these teams are in the playoffs. Cowboys are in the driver's seat. They're trying to get a... I'm pretty sure they still have the chance of getting home field advantage, depending on how these games play out at the end. The Colts, they're going to be hosting a game wild card weekend. So after this game here, Dallas Cowboys 42-7. They are 6th in the league with a 101.6 rating, and then the Colts are 12th with an 80.1 rating. Total domination by Dallas. One of the things I saw in this game, going back to it real quick, that defense for Dallas, I mean, if you keep them off the field, they were so fast. They were all over the place, and Indianapolis looked completely confused. They had no idea what to do, and everything was just get the ball out quick, get it out quick, and they couldn't do anything. Cowboys completely dominated this one. Next game on the schedule was another complete domination, especially in the fourth quarter here. Seattle Seahawks 35-6, and wow, Marshawn Lynch, wow. You better put 2 hands around him and you hold on to him until somebody else can run over and help you tackle him, because you're not just going to hit him and he's going to fall over. He'll push you out of bounds. He'll push you to the ground. He'll do whatever he needs to do, and he's going to keep going until he is on the ground. So you grab a hold of him and you hold on to him, or else you're not taking him down by yourself. 35-6. He had that monstrous 79-yard run. Russell Wilson had a 55-yard run. He had an 80-yard touchdown pass to Luke Wilson. A bunch of big plays here for Seattle. They finished with 596 total yards against one of the best defenses in the league. Arizona now, after that game, they are no longer one of the best defenses in the league. I believe they were number 5 coming into it. They were completely dominated in every way, shape, or form. Wilson went 20 of 31 for 339 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lynch ran 10 times for 113 and 2 touchdowns. Russell Wilson had 6 for 88 and a touchdown. Luke Wilson had 3 for 139 and 2. Doug Baldwin 7 for 113. I mean, this was another complete domination. Ryan Lindley, I'm sorry, 18 of 44, 216, 0-1. Arizona, what would you do to have Kurt Warner right now? Even Carson Palmer, if Palmer would have stayed healthy, you guys would have had a great season. Unfortunately, he did not, and you guys are starting to fall apart a little bit here towards the end. Now 11-4. At one point, I believe they were 9-1. So they've gone 2-3 since. Seattle wins this one. They are now 11-4, and they're in charge of the NFC West. They still have a chance of losing it, and Arizona still has a chance of winning this NFC West. And I believe they still have a shot of home field advantage throughout, depending on who wins, who loses. But Seattle looks scary again. Their defense is really good. It is really, really good. You played Ryan Lindley, which isn't the best quarterback or anybody to look at. We only give up 216 yards again, and they look really good, really good. Best shot to win the Super Bowl. If the defense plays the way they did against Arizona or the way they've been playing the last few weeks, they probably will win the Super Bowl. I mean, I'd love to see them play Green Bay. I'd love to see them play New England. But Seattle wins this one, 35-6, and they're both 11-4 now. Last game was Denver Broncos at Cincinnati. Cincinnati pretty much dominated this one too. Denver tried to come back in the third quarter, scoring 21 points. And I believe they took the lead at that point, did they not? Yeah, they did. They were up 28-27. You almost gave it away, Cincy. But a huge interception, touchdown by Drake Kirkpatrick, brought this one back. Manning again, not another bad game. 28 of 44, 311, 2 touchdowns and 4 picks. He's been a little rough here towards the end. Andy Dalton actually outplayed him, just by the sheer fact that he didn't throw 4 interceptions. He only threw 1. Jeremy Hill, another monster game. 22 carries for 147 yards and a touchdown, helped by an 85-yard touchdown run. After this game, the Denver Broncos are now 4th in the league, and the Cincinnati Bengals are 8th in the league. According to the metrics, the Denver Broncos 108.9 and the Cincinnati Bengals 87.1.